Greetings to all. My name is Lynn Maria Pish Hernandez. I'm a specialist in international relations in the Office of the Jose Marti Program of the Ministry of Culture of Cuba. And also I'm a member of the organizing committee of the International Conference for the World Balance, organized by this office. And at present, I would like to share with you some thoughts, like some introductory remarks about my presentation, my paper, called Precedents and Main Current Trends of Knowledge Economy in the Context of Contemporary Capitalism. And it's a presentation that focuses on the last decades of history of humanity. And just a brief introduction. When we analyze the current development of the world economy, one of the most distinctive elements is the conversion of knowledge into a main productive force. It's not just a merchandise anymore, it's also a capitalization opportunity, and it's also the main capitalization opportunity in many regards. So, taking into account the global prevalence of capitalist system of production, distribution, and consumption, the role of knowledge in the social production since the 80s of last century, with antecedents in the previous decade, has been conditioned by the laws of the market and by the tendencies of capitalist development. So when we see how the different formulas of capital accumulation have been evolving, we have different stages here, and each of these stages has had a unique capital accumulation formula in the big picture, right? Closely linked always to the techno-economic paradigms, right? How technology has evolved so far and how economies take that evolution and all that progress into account and then reconfigure it. So there, of course, in each stage, there is a representative technological innovation. So we can see, we can actually match industrial revolutions to different industrial revolutions to different stages of the capital accumulation. Right now, after the Second World War, we can say that we are in the technological stage, right? And right now we're facing a new technological paradigm, and I'm not just talking about AI, right? But there is reality, and we are in the threshold of the fourth industrial revolution. So in this context, knowledge it's now the main currency, the main merchandise, the main way to get more money, to get more profit. Nowadays, the analysis of implications of the technological paradigm in the stage of financial and technological capitalism shows that capital accumulation matrix in these stages depends more and more on the availability to advanced technology, like to the access to advanced technology and energy self-sufficiency applicable to production processes. And when we see initiatives as the Global Knowledge Index or the Global Innovation Index or the Innovation Complexity Index, we see the role that knowledge now plays not just in the elaboration of the indicators for growth and development, but also at the moment of creating policies and considering an economy efficient or not, competitive enough or not. And we can see hand in hand with this process, we have the capitalization and the conversion of knowledge in another commodity. And we can see in the international innovation cycles diagrams how in the far east of this chart we have on the screen how technology high-tech based advances are taking more and more a central role in at the moment of classifying economies, at the moment of classifying societies, and to evaluate the progress of these societies, of course, and comparing each other and comparing them amongst them. So in this context, knowledge begins to be capitalized in a very peculiar way. Like nowadays, this very peculiar way of capitalizing knowledge brings social, economic, geopolitical, environmental dynamics very peculiar to the present stage of human history. For example, even when the characteristics of capitalism described and studied by the classics of Marxism a couple centuries ago and in the beginning of the 20th century are still present today, and they actually condition a lot of multiple dynamics of the world, of the world system, and of international relations throughout the last 4 decades, with antecedents since the 1970s, but especially from 1980s to the current day. There have been considerable mutations of these characteristics, and we're going to that's the premise of this paper. And then, just for a reminder, we have the classic features of imperialism, right? And the superior phase of capitalism, starting with monopolies and with the division of the world among great powers. But then we have all these current dynamics occurring at the same time in our world, in 21st century, second decade of the 21st century world. And all of this is conditioning very, very hard changes, very visible mutations, and a lot of invisible ones, and not superficial ones, in the current definition of capitalism. Because at some point in the paper, we try to make a comparison, right, between the euphemism of a knowledge economy, among air quotes, and then the current capitalistic stage. Right? This is a very particular phase within imperialism, as defined by Lenin. And right now, we have the neoliberal globalization going on for us. We have the appearance of, in a way that is faster and faster and faster, of technological advances, which are happening at a speed that was inconceivable in Marx's times, and in Marx's time, and even Lenin's time. And we have the internet coming up in the 90s. We have the reconfiguration of the world after the end, air quotes, of the Cold War. We have a growing dependence of big economies towards the military industrial complex, which is very, very worrying. Like, war is still a main source of business. Actually, the militarization of knowledge is also a problem for the science development, and how there is this permanent tendency to make a weapon of everything that science has to offer. I'm just not talking about just like the atomic bomb, right? The creation of the atomic bomb, because of this great science discovery that happened, but I'm also talking about how we can weaponize even the internet, right? Who was something that can be like, could be something that expands the human mind and contributes to the human development, becomes a source of despair, disparity, and general calamity. Especially not just for those who doesn't have access to it, but also for those who have access to it, and certainly their life changes, because the world is not meant for humans to soar. It's not meant for humanity to soar, but for capital to soar and to prosper. So in this framework, can we actually talk about benefits of knowledge economy? Don't we need to redefine that? Don't we need to appropriate of that in a different way. In any case, I'm just going ahead of myself. But the truth is, all these characteristics are conditioning the way we see the world today. And of course, we have some examples in the paper. We explore some statistics and econometrics that allow us to see how the different qualitative changes are actually determining qualitative changes and vice versa, always from a very dialectic perspective, and how actually, for instance, in the first example, how the mergers of different monopolies, oligopolies, companies, etc., cartels, syndicates are actually changing the global economy. For instance, in finance, how going beyond the crisis and the financial crisis we could see in the last century, right now, the level of financiarization of the economy and the role that finances play in the global economy is way out of proportion, considering how the real economy and the real production of goods and services work. Of course, we have examples from the different characteristics, different traits synthesized by our Marxist classics. But of course, the idea is, even though these characteristics still matter, the variables identified as protagonists of each of these traits are the variables to follow. We have significant changes in the way these variables behave and interact with each other and define the world we are living in. For instance, this is a personal favorite about political distribution of power, the political distribution of the world. Well, in the times of Lenin, weaponizing the space, the extraterrestrial space, wasn't a possibility. And right now, the main powers of the world are actually fighting for their influence, not just in land and sea and air, but also in the cyberspace and also in the extraterrestrial space. So taking that into account, talking about knowledge economy, defining a knowledge economy is very tricky. Of course, I take as a reference the mainstream definitions of it. Here we have an infographics on the 4 pillars identified by the Global Bank on what a knowledge economy is and how economical and industrial regime is basic. This is one of the things we need to take into account, try to make a characterization out of it, what are the ideal economical and institutional regimes for the knowledge economy. Of course, there are pretty clear standards to be followed here, according to the Occidental metrics, right? The second pillar is education and skills. What do we teach to our youngest people? What do we ask for our laboring class? Information and communications and the development of this is the third pillar, of course, and innovation systems, how we put our economies to function thanks to innovation and looking forward to promote more innovation. And innovation for what? So these 4 pillars are in the basis of what we call a knowledge economy, according to the Global Bank. And the reality is that faced with this complex scenario, an analysis of the potentialities and limitations of knowledge economy paradigm is imposed within the framework of capitalist relations of production, distribution, and consumption of goods, services, and ideologies. And it's very difficult to think outside the box, but then we have also this reality, in the superior piece of this presentation, we have the digital divide, and we have a nocturnal side of the world. It's a very shocking, very clear image, and how the world doesn't function as monolithical. It's not as homogeneous as we would like to believe. We talk about global economy, and we talk about knowledge economy and access to the latest technologies, but the reality is the world is still highly divided. In the lower part of the presentation, we have the world divided between developed countries and not developed countries, and the specific weight these developed economies play in the real world and the real influence. And far right down, we have how the world would look if countries were as big as their GDPs. And we can see like a significant reduction of a lot of underdeveloped countries in this scenario. Also, we have a climatic crisis that is actually provoked in more than one way because of the current way the global economy functions. Capitalism functions as a highly consuming, highly dependent, and highly predatory system. And the reality is all of these impacts in knowledge. We have the world's biggest ranking universities, and the developed countries with more intellectual property rights, and the first countries in the Global Innovation Index are exactly the same. Like these three maps feature different indicators, key indicators for in order to talk about the knowledge, and we see that all these indicators lie in the same group of countries all over the world. So this is a reality we have to start by acknowledging, and then try to think different and take another step. So these are the premises of the paper. I really hope you can access it and enjoy it in the fall.